this week, but now it's time to talk mock drafts. I know you love mock drafts. You love mock drafts a lot more than I do, Shane. I think that is
I do.
Well documented, but nobody does information gathering on mock drafts better than our guest tonight. It's our good friend Denny from Mock Draft Database. Denny, man, how you doing?
Hello, everyone. How's it going?
Good. Thanks for coming on, man.
Of course. Yeah, I was laughing because Shane's probably writing up a 2027 mock draft right now, getting ready.
Look! I gotta be the one to initiate every year on your site. So
that's true. Yeah,
that's how it goes.
Yeah. No doubt about it. That man knows he loves him some mock drafts.
You know, when he starts doing those mock drafts, and I'm like, all right, I guess I got to get started on that year. Adding players.
It's a little bit. Right?
Yeah. You may as well just go ahead and get the template started. Like as soon as this draft's over, go ahead and get the 2026 one started because it's coming not long after.
Yep.
So get ready.
Hey, it gives me an excuse to get the simulator up for that year, so you can start picking these players that may not ever be even first round picks, but it'll be fun.
They may never finish college football. To be honest, some of these guys.
It's true.
All right, let's just get it out of the way. Who's projected right now? The top quarterback, is it Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, and how is that gone? Has it yo-yoed throughout this process?
I think it's been pretty consistent. Bryce Young. Pretty consistently that he's been the top quarterback. Before these bowl games and everything, I kind of had this like weird feeling that Will Levis was going to sneak up there and get that top pick just because, he puts out those videos of him like tossing the ball, like, without moving like really far. And I'm like, man, one of these owners is just going to see that. And they're going to be like, we need to get that guy, and he's got the size and everything. But, after the two bowl games, I think Young and Stroud have kind of solidified the 1 and 2 spots. So they'll probably go. My guess is 1 and 2 in the draft.
Yeah, very possible. I think it's gonna be interesting to see how people kind of trend on both of them going forward too. Are there any other trends now that you're putting on mock drafts up there every day? So if anyone that's listening wants to see mock draft heaven, it's Denny's site. But are there any trends, things that have been changing here, especially in bowl season? Guys moving up, guys moving down. Anything that you've kind of noticed as you're adding a lot of these?
I think Spencer Rattler kind of came on strong towards the end of the year, but we don't know what he's going to end up doing. He might go back to school. Everyone's just kind of waiting for that. Not super, that high of a prospect. He'll be like that 4th round, 5th round kind of guy. As far as like guys that kind of have moved up, I mean, Kenny McIntosh for sure moved up. I think Spears from Tulane, still hasn't really caught on. There's a lot of these guys that are going to be higher, but most of the mock draft world hasn't really caught up to it. A perfect example would have been Christian Gonzalez from Oregon. For a long time he was like cornerback 5, 6, maybe 4, and now he's moving up. He's moved up to 2, and I would not be surprised if he ends up being the number 1 corner. Because a lot of these people are now starting to catch up to what he is.
That brings me to a question I had: is the cornerback position, unlike a lot of these other position groups, there doesn't seem to be a whole lot separating like the top 5. So like how are you seeing like this? Like you said, Christian Gonzalez is now up to number 2. Is Ringo still the top guy, or is it Cam Smith, or are we seeing who else is in this like group of corners?
Yeah, I mean, right now it's kind of like a 3-way race between Ringo, Gonzalez, and Porter. Cam Smith is right there too, and then like behind them in that like next group are Phillips from Utah and Witherspoon from Illinois. But there's a solid group, and it's still super early. I think things are going to change once the combine happens and all that fun stuff. So. I still like to kind of say like, yeah, these are good rankings right now, but things are going to change. kids are still declaring, kids are still returning to school and stuff. And this is kind of that weird time. And I remember it was a few years back. I think Greg Newsome declared, and at the time, Greg Newsome hadn't shown up in any mock drafts. And so when he declared, ended up becoming a first-round pick, but he was not in any mock drafts up until that point. And I think same with who is the Northwestern offensive lineman that went in the first round a few years back too? Slater, yeah, another one. He declared he wasn't in any mock drafts as well.
Yeah,
it's early.
you're gonna have those guys that no one expected, right? And you didn't watch, no one watched, and then you're like, oh crap, I gotta watch this guy.
Exactly.
I feel like there's always a couple every year that I watch. I'm like, well, how did I miss this, right? So Brian asked about corners. One other position I want to ask about that I'm interested in how this position group is jostling is wide receiver, because I mean, to me, I think there's kind of a big three in Quentin Johnston from TCU, Jordan Addison, USC, Jackson Smith and Jigba from Ohio State. We've seen guys like Jalen Hyatt from Tennessee and, Rashee Rice from SMU, Zay Flowers from Boston College, right? A lot like getting kind of mixed in there. What's happening with receiver in these mock drafts? Is there a consensus order? Is it pretty jumbled and we're waiting for those next steps to figure it out?
I think there's definitely a 1 and 2, which is, Johnston from TCU and Addison from USC. JSN has been kind of, been falling, understandably. I mean, he didn't play the entire year, opted out, which I kind of sneaking speculation that I wonder if he opted out because he was worried that had he not performed to the level of like the Marvin Harrison Jr., that he would absolutely not be a first round pick then. At least now you still have that stigma that he can kind of hold on to. So I would not be surprised if he falls to the second round. It wouldn't shock me, if he went like in the high second round. But there's kind of like that 1-2 and then a bunch of other guys. They're all kind of jumbled together with the Jalen Hyatt, Josh Downs, Rice from SMU. These are all these guys that are kind of that second tier group.
One guy you tweeted about a few weeks ago that has saw his graph just skyrocket was Tyree Wilson, edge rusher from Texas Tech. How high are you seeing him go? And after that, I want to talk about Andre Carter from Army, because I know we had the whole controversy congressional deal with him. Now that that's cleared up, or have we seen his number kind of settle back down as well?
Yeah. So for Tyree Wilson, he's kind of now starting to stabilize where he's at. It's in that 7, 8, 9 range. So definitely a high first round pick. Highest I've seen him go in mock drafts is 4 to the Cardinals. We'll see how high he ends up going. Especially if I think it'll all depend on the quarterbacks, right? If the teams kind of stay where they're at, and say the Bears don't trade down, they stay at 2 or stay at 1, and they take Will Anderson, and then another not QB needy team stays up there. Then you could see a Tyree Wilson going high. But if these teams trade up and the quarterbacks go high, then Tyree Wilson probably going like that, 5 to 8 range. As far as the Andre Carter, I think he's been pretty consistent. Let me see where he's at right now. Oh, he's actually moved up. He's he's been in that 30 to 40 range. I think a lot of the mocks, some of them have him in the first round, but I think he's going to be just a solid mid rounder, high round, second round pick.
So one thing I like about your database compared to some others is you'll include almost everybody, which I like, because I like finding new people, and sometimes you can find some gems of people that you're oh, these people really get what they're doing. On the other end, sometimes there are some maybe faux pas or things that people do that they shouldn't. You tweeted about one recently. Maybe you can talk about, but are there any mistakes? If anyone out there wants to submit their mock draft that you shouldn't be making to submit one at this point.
So the reason I like to include the names you don't hear about is because I feel like those people take it a lot more serious. right? They're kind of invested in it. They're doing this out of passion, not because it's a job. I think a lot of times, like especially some of these major sites, I start to see a pattern of exactly what they do. You know, like for example, they create a mock draft and then they replace one player, put in some random player into the mock draft just to make it interesting. And I notice that every time. And then the next mock draft, that player's gone, they replace it with someone else. And so that's where I'm like, like that seems like kind of you're just writing articles to get clicks. You're not actually passionate about it. You know, there was definitely like my favorite is when the writers write completely different names for the player. You know, like I think there was one. What was it? I forget. It was a quarterback from was it BYU? Yeah, the Jared Hall.
Jared Hall, yeah.
Yeah, and he wrote like Darren something or other, and I'm like, wait, what? Like you didn't even get the name right. And I was so confused, but it just kind of like you'd be surprised at how many misspellings there are. You know, you should see my database. I kind of like track every misspelling there is, and because that's just what happens. But yeah, so there's a lot of that, a lot of random players showing up for no reason. Every once in a while, I'll notice like a player that has returned to school, right? So then they're ineligible. Not too frequently, and I kind of I'm okay with that, especially like when it's a week or two out. But when it's like a month later, it's like, come on, like you're not even paying attention. Especially a high-profile player that goes in the first round. That's kind of inexcusable.
I saw that today with somebody had when you tweeted about Olu Fashanu.
Yes, yeah. You know, that's kind of like, come on. Yeah, there's a lot of that, which is always fun to see. I think one of my favorite things, you know, I think I've said this before, but I'm a user of my own site, right? I love mock drafts. That's why I built the site. And then one of my favorite things I do is I love to see what players aren't in the mock drafts rather than what players show up in the mock drafts. Because I like to see, oh, interesting, that this mock draft didn't include Ringo as a first rounder, for example. Oh, why? Okay, let's go look at the mock draft and see how that fell. You know, maybe it's like justified, maybe it's crazy, but it keeps things fresh and interesting and makes you think a little bit more. Because I think that's a lot of times when you read a mock draft, you read it, but you don't really know who's missing unless it's a super high profile player. So it's fun to do that.
So if you see that with Shane, it's because there was a reason for it. If you see it with mine, it's because I forgot.
There is you know, your guys' site is definitely one where I have to add a lot of new players to the database, which is good. I mean, I love adding players to the database, but there's definitely a lot of them like, man, I didn't even know that player was there, or like that player. Wow, that's cool. But you know, that really makes it interesting, right? Because it's boring when it's the same stuff over and over again, use the same rankings over and over again. And that's why I love finding all different websites out there, because everyone's going to have a different opinion on stuff.
I was a little disappointed when I looked at mine on your site earlier and I didn't see a rare by it. I was like, I will try better. I will try harder next time.
Yeah. You need one rare. You need one.
Yeah,
at least one.
Yeah, I think a rare is above 100 on the ranking on the big board. So if the player is above 100, then you know that player is like a rare first round.
I have taken this as a challenge. Okay, let's get back to quarterbacks right quick. We talked about Stroud. We talked about Young. We assume Levis and Richardson are the next two quarterbacks, and I'm quite sure your rankings bear that out. Whether it's in the first round or not, I mean they shouldn't be, but whether that is the case or not, who is number 5 right now?
So right now it's Hooker, but Tanner McKee from Stanford is like right behind him. So it's those two are next up. You know, we'll see what happens. We'll see how I mean, I don't know how Hooker's going to do any offseason, anything. So I mean, I could see McKee taking that spot. You know, but we'll see. We'll see how that goes.
And I assume Hooker was 3rd before the injury.
I don't think so.
So Levis was still ahead?
Yeah. And I think Richardson was ahead of him too before the injury.
Okay.
I think
I think
we're lower on those two. Yeah. Have you ever thought about? I don't know. You know, we do the Huddle Report contest. And there's a couple different sites out there, kind of grading the mocks things. Have you ever thought about a way to kind of grade the mocks after everything's said and done, especially when you have this full database of people's histories and that kind of thing? Is that ever, to look at accuracy to start to get that? I know it's maybe easier said than done.
Yeah, funny you ask. I actually do grade them at the end of the year. So it's I grade every single mock draft. So even if a writer is wrote 20 mock drafts for the year, one in May right after the draft, and then one in April right leading up to the draft, all those get graded. As you can imagine, the ones closer to April are going to be more accurate. And I think the one thing that I do is I give a little bit more. I do like a point total, right? So it's like you guess the right player at the right position, that's a point. You guess the right position at the right pick, that's a point. The right college at the pick, that's a point. I mean, even though that it doesn't really matter, but it just gives a little bit more interest rather than just guessing the exact pick. And so because of that, I created my own little ranking, and it was last year's was a little tough. I think there was a trade, right? Oh no, it was the Giants picks, right? The Giants had like 2 picks almost very close together. And so a lot of people had the right players, but at the wrong spots. And so that kind of like screwed the accuracy for a lot of mock drafts. But the year before, there was one mock draft, I think, that had a really, really high percentage.
Josh Norris,
Josh Norris. Let's see what he had. He guessed 47% correct, which is insane for a first-round draft. Yeah. So, but that was actually that draft actually, as a whole, a lot of writers had correct, and that could be because maybe there wasn't a lot of trades happening. Maybe the draft just kind of fell as expected. I think trades definitely mess with a mock. Every time there's a trade that happens, everyone's like, "No, my mock draft is ruined." But it's still fun to see how people do.
All right, Denny. Last question for me.
Mm-hmm.
Which Byron Young gets drafted higher?
Oh my gosh! So it wasn't until like a few weeks into the season that I realized there was 2 players, and I'm like, okay, no problem. I'll just I'll go by position, and it's like, oh, they're at the same position. Great. And I'm like, not only that, but I'm like, okay, maybe one of them is not even that important. It's like maybe he plays at like, I don't know, some 1AA school. Nope, they're both SEC players that are both going to be in the draft. And I'm like, oh my God. So I had to, go through and I added them. But I think, funny enough, I think they're both like right up against each other in ranking, if I remember correctly. Let's see. Yeah. One is Byron Young from Tennessee is ranked 137th, and Byron Young from Alabama is ranked 138th. Like, these 2 guys could not be more alike. I mean, I don't know them. I'm not a scout. I don't know them as players, but from a data standpoint, they could not be more similar.
That's good stuff. Shane, you got another question?
Look, I got to ask about 2024 since
right.
since I'm on that database and my stuff's on there. It is basically like when we're a year and a half out from a draft. Mm-hmm. Is there anything that you can take from these early mocks, or is it like, not to tell people not to look at my 2024 mock, but is it like, look, you probably shouldn't put much stock there?
It's just fun to look at because I take a look at those mocks, and it's a way for me to know, okay, who should I be watching in the games next year? That's really what this is. And, or for example, like a lot of these players that return to school, maybe they'll show up. They have shown up in 2023 mocks or rankings or whatever. And now I bring them to 2024. Well, they have some data now. So now because they have some data, they're going to be ranked a little higher. And, with that, I also then went back and I added, just manually added 5-star prospect, 4-star prospects into the database from that year that are, the first year eligible. So that way, at least there's some players there. And then from there, you can kind of go to the simulator and make your own mock draft. But I wish more people did future mock drafts, even though, I mean, at the end of the day, it's for fun, right? We're all just guessing and having fun. I think some people maybe take it too seriously, where it's like, no, like, so what? Like, there's some mock drafts where people only do like the top 10 picks. It's like, come on, you can do more than the top 10 picks, It's just do a simulator real quick. But it's funny. I talk about the simulator, but I've seen a trend where writers are too reliant on the simulators, whether it's my simulator or the other sites of simulators, to the point where a lot of mock drafts are starting to all kind of look the same, rather than people being a little bit more independent about who they choose to draft, rather than like letting the simulator kind of determine who they're going to draft. So.
Well, Denny, we can't thank you enough for coming on. You came on with us last year. We're glad to have you back. We both use your simulator a lot.
Awesome.
And it will probably be the rest of our staff will probably be using it very soon as we get into the season. But tell everybody where they can follow you and where they can get all this beautiful data from.
Yeah, so you can follow me on Twitter at _mock drafts. And my website is nflmockdraftdatabase.com. And there you'll be able to, you don't have to Google mock drafts anymore. I post them up daily. And you can kind of get an idea of like rankings and seeing every single mock drafts out there. And you can play with the simulator as well and make your own mock draft.
Awesome, man. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah.
Yes, of course.
Thanks, Denny, man.
That was our good buddy Denny from Mock Draft Database coming on.
Yeah, he's fun, and he knows his stuff. So I enjoy